Please everyone remain good prompt. Please everyone remain on mute until I invite you to ask the question. Candidates need time to reflect and prepare a response, so please also be patient. We must be mindful of the time, and candidates must stick to time for responses, please. We will kick off with opening statements. Dan Jarella, can I please invite you to give yours?
Thanks. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So I'm here today because I believe that we need a stronger, more responsive CIPR that's reflecting the profession today, but also looking ahead. AI is transforming how we work. Trust is harder to build. Clients and organisations are under scrutiny, probably like never before. And I think in this context, the CIPR has a vital leadership role to develop insights and training that suit our members and to bring our members together and represent us effectively. My statement outlined 5 key priorities. So I talked about refreshing CPD, putting CIPR at the forefront of debates, reconnecting with volunteers, widening our reach and strengthening our governance. So on the CPD side, I'm a huge supporter of chartership, but I think there's more to our professional development than chartership. We need to support members at every career level. So yes, get them chartered, but for some, that's going to feel quite far away depending on where they are in their career. So I'd like to see more tailored learning that works for those people. So maybe someone who's changed career, maybe they're mid-level in their carear, maybe they've hit a ceiling and can't get promoted. They might just not know what to do next, and we're there and should be there to help them with that. I specialise in the built environment in my day role, and I've seen what it looks like where CPD is unstructured and not taken seriously. But I've also seen membership bodies respond to that and do some real self-searching about what it means to be a membership organisation with a code of conduct, and that encourages CPD. And I want to bring this experience in. On the advocacy side, we've led the way on lobbying. We've done really well on AI. But we need to broaden it out. So AI, for example, I think we got quite tactical. We need to look at the impact on our status as professionals, what it means for our business models, what it means for our development going forward. We need to talk about big things like housing, infrastructure, decarbonisation of our economy. These aren't because I'm biased and work in the built environment. These are huge societal issues that exist for everybody. And I think they require significant levels of communication to diverse audiences. And dare I say, it's a challenge on the level of when the CIPR was first founded in the post-war years. And it's right in our Royal Charter. We should be acting and doing things for the public good. And of course, that covers EDI too, the work that we need to do to reach other people and make sure that we're representing communities and communicating with communities really well. And I think, things like the Age in PR report, things around neurodiversity, socioeconomic background, we need to be looking at these issues as well. As well as representing members, the president should be representing volunteers as well. I want to lead a full volunteer review that looks at how we attract people, how we reward them, how we recognise them, and basically how we build a legacy for the future. On the partnership side, what I was thinking was about protecting the integrity of our brand and working to improve our reach, improve our influence, and ultimately increase member value. So this will involve lots of potential new relationships, but also potential commercial deals as well, because I think, we need to be sensible and look at diversifying our income. We can't just rely on membership and training costs to raise our funds. And I said about governance as well. So, it's a journey. We changed a lot of things last year. I think one of the outcomes was to try and bring more people into elections. Well, the fact that this is a contested election this year, I think is a real positive. But I think there's more to do. One of those is to get more rigour between the link between council and board. And I feel that's totally within the president's remit, but doesn't necessarily always work in practice. So for me, that's the way that the presidential term should be judged, not just on what we do outwardly and not, inwardly to engage members, but also that kind of functionality and governance around the institute as well. My final point really is that, a year isn't actually that long. So for me, I think my experience kind of in-house and in agency and working internationally and with the CIPR should give me, hopefully, a good chance to hit the ground running.
Thanks, Dan. And if I can move on to Graham Goodkind, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Look, I can't compete with Aileen and Dan in terms of their level of knowledge and immersion in the CIPR. they're both outstanding candidates. I think you'll agree. But the option with me is very, very different. I'm much more of a non-exec advisory type candidate, less looking at the day-to-day, more helping shape the bigger picture and hopefully the future. My nominators, many of whom are past presidents, have been very enthusiastic about me standing for this role because they think this is just what the CIPR needs right now. I've had a pretty successful and very rewarding journey starting up and growing Frank into one of the leading agencies in this industry over the last 25 years. I've had serious experience working with different companies, brands, people, and stakeholders. Been lucky to employ over 650 full-time employees over that 25 years. I've given over 1,250 people work experience roles, many hundreds of whom have got use that to get jobs elsewhere in the industry. I've been round the block. These days I work free, still practicing my trade, keeping me in touch, keeping me relevant, and I've made the time to give something back to this industry the other 2 days. I'm really grateful for what the industry has done professionally, emotionally, intellectually, and financially, and it's time now for me to pay it forward, so to speak. I'd be at the service of the CIPR board, the different groups and committees to consult, advise, challenge, inspire, bounce stuff off. That's what I'm good at. And I've had a number of I currently have a number of other non-exec advisory and trustee roles, both in the private and voluntary sector, where I do that. Now, of course, I've got a few things that I think the CIPR could probably do a little bit better, and I'll try and champion those. Consumer PR, for example, which is my patch, is very underrepresented in terms of being members of the CIPR for a start, and it accounts for at least 30% of the total PR industry. Particularly Gen Zers, they're the lifeblood for the future. Consumer PR is awash with younger people. And I'm not really sure that the CPD system at the moment is geared to them or consumer PR at all. I think there's a big opportunity, and I think I could add a lot in terms of the relevant CPD content. I think also, having just done it, the chartership, is the CIPR's and actually the PR industry's best kept secret. I'd like to help communicate its value to both individuals attaining it and to clients working with someone who is chartered. It's an amazing opportunity. I'm not sure the CIPR realises this. And finally, I think we'd all agree that the world out there is pretty hard right now for the PR community. Well, we shouldn't underestimate that. There's the challenges and opportunities posed by AI. There's a mixed client understanding about our profession. There's a troubling perception of our profession, issues with talent, all combined with a tough business climate and outlook. And it's important that we've got the right community spirit to help get us through these next few years together. And I'll do my best to help foster that spirit within the CIPR. As I said at the top, I might not be the most obvious person for the role, but I promise I won't let anyone down when it comes to passion, enthusiasm, creativity, and energy. And I'll be honoured and proud to serve as your president.
Thanks, Graham, and for keeping to time. And over to Aileen Thompson now. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining and engaging with us today. As I said in my application, I am passionate about public relations. It's been the bedrock of my entire career, and I'm a proud CIPR member. So, as others have said, it is now time to give more back, and I think I can use my experience to make a tangible difference for you, to make a tangible difference to the CIPR and the public relations profession as a whole. I have been both in-house and an agency, and I'm now an independent consultant. And I think that the CIPR membership that I've held during all that time is illustrated in the achievements that I've been able to have and the results that I've been able to deliver for the organisations that I've worked for. I've also been and continue to be a very active CIPR board member. And at these meetings and board members and committees and things that we do, we're not sitting around talking, we are doing. And so this summer I've been involved both with members in updating our ethics resources for the chartership and for those interested in ethics as a whole, as well as started to shape our first CIPR Engage podcast on ageing. But you'll want to know, what am I going to do as president-elect? And that is, for me, three things. First of all, make sure that I can support our new president, Farzana Badel, as she starts an exciting year ahead in 2026. She won't be able to do everything herself all the time, and I'll be there to step in as needed to support the council, the board, and the chair and members in whatever else is required. I also want to use it as an opportunity to engage further with members and to talk to our volunteers, because there will be the time for me to start looking around and ensuring that my priorities are grounded in real member insight during 2026. And as I come towards the end of next year, if I'm elected, and then look at my presidential year, I want to make sure that that input has helped to shape the type of priorities I'm looking at. During the summer, I talked to quite a lot of members across the country, including England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. And there were 3 themes that emerged: member value and making sure that members really feel they're getting return on investment for their fees and for everything that they engage in. Volunteers are important and they need to be rewarded, in my view, more than just with CPD points. And I want to make it clear that we'll therefore have tangible examples of demonstration of that value in case studies that we have on our website and ready to show and champion to others. Secondly, I want to really focus on this challenge and opportunity that AI brings us. First of all, define what our role actually is in delivering the value that AI is offering us. And secondly, as a convener of others, and this is where the CIPR is so strong and powerful, we're not the only people challenged with the impact on our business models. Let's get others together, HR, legal, and work out what are the options for delivery of a sustainable business model that we can all feel part of. And there's a lot of work going on in this area already. Thirdly, I want to continue the focus on diversity and inclusion that our current president-elect and president have done. But I want to double down on ageism, which we know is an issue in our profession, and on social mobility. Members tell me that is worrying them. How do they get in and around and upwards in our profession today? That we're already doing a lot of good work, remember, because we've got the CIPR programme together with the Taylor Bennett Foundation on reverse mentoring. Let's not reinvent the wheel there. Let's promote it even further. However, I think there's more we can do with what will be our first ageism podcast, and I want to really champion that. If I'm able to be successful and get through and work with our members and volunteers, then I think there's some tangible outcomes we can look at as a profession. One that has pride, one that has strength, one that is looking at the CIPR as the indispensable part of the public relations profession, and one that delivers value to you as members, to you as volunteers, and that sees a sustainable way into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all 3 candidates. You have their statements, and now is the opportunity to ask questions. If I could please ask you to think of all 3 candidates, and if you have a question, please do react in Zoom. Chris, you are first if you want to come off mute and ask your question, please.
Thank you very much. I'd be interested if each of the 3 candidates could tell me the most difficult ethical challenge they have faced in their careers and how they managed it.
Thanks, Chris. While the candidates are thinking of that, I will go to David Hamilton, who is next on my screen with his hand up. David, do you want to come off mute and tell me who you'd like to direct your question to and what your question is?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to also say thank you to all 3 candidates. It's brilliant to have 3 really incredible candidates standing who I admire. But just for transparency, I am one of Dan's nominators. How would you convince an experienced PR professional who doesn't see the value in CPD or chartership to engage?
And David, can you say who that's for, please?
That's to all three candidates.
Okay. Great. Thanks, David. Just give everyone a little second to have a think. So just coming back to the first question from Chris, it was about a difficult ethical challenge and how you overcame it. And then David Hamilton's question just in there as well was around convincing experienced PR professionals about chartership and CPD, which seems to be a bit of a theme, which is good. Hayley, I can see you've got your hand up just now. If you don't mind just keeping it up, and then I'll come back to you in a bit. What I'll try and do is go to each candidate for the first question, and then I will switch up the order we do the second question, and then we'll see what time we're on. Candidates, do you feel like you can answer the first question? Yeah. If I can come to you, Aileen, first then, thank you, that would be great.
Yeah.
Let's take the question from Chris about the difficult ethical challenge.
Thank you, Chris. And I wouldn't have expected you to ask anything other than a challenging question. I've faced a number of ethical challenges in my career, but the most difficult one personally for me was when I was asked to put my public relations functional expertise to one side and to step up as a leader and undertake a major investigation into allegations of misbehaviour and bullying in a colleague who was part of a senior leadership team. So not at the same level as me. I was an executive director, but this is a colleague who was in the senior leadership team, the level below. I dodged, or I think my other colleagues had dodged a bullet and put me forward as the individual to lead the investigation. And I asked for third-party expertise because I felt that we needed to produce and investigate in the same way as a judge would do with a jury. So the gathering of evidence and the positioning of the case, the gathering of facts was very, very important to me. And as inevitably, there are always rumours and misinformation, and you need to cut to the facts. I worked with a senior lawyer, and together we pulled together a case, and I spent about 6 weeks interviewing 50 people involved in the particular allegation, including the accused, who of course was innocent until proven guilty. That gave me an insight into management of information, the positioning of both the advantages and disadvantages in a case, and coming to a logical conclusion using the facts and evidence gained from interviews, where again I was looking at specific information and asking people to be detailed. It pushed me as a leader to corners that I had not visited, but I was determined to base my final recommendations and the steps that we could take both as an organisation and to protect the individual and those that allegedly had been impacted. And we came out with a fair result. But it gave me some sleepless nights. I wanted to do the right thing for the allegations and those that had suffered from those. And I also wanted to do the right thing for the individual under scrutiny. And I felt we came to a fair outcome at the end of the day, and I'd done my duty.
Thank you very much. And if we can move on to Dan for his response.
Thanks. I think the true test of ethics is when there's a pound sign, actually. I think if you're turning down work or doing things that maybe, affect the day-to-day operation of your business or your day-to-day operation of your career potentially and might cause you issues, if you still put your foot down and turn around and say, no, that's not ethical behaviour, I think that's the real test of character, actually. And I've had many incidents throughout my career where I can think of one in particular where it was a big public consultation. So as I said, I work in the built environment, and the potential client we did this whole thing around lots of engagement with the community. How do we get the right thing? How do we get this thing through planning? How do we make sure that the community gains from it and gets the right outcomes? And at the end of the meeting, it was like, okay, so we've done all that stuff, but if we just had to meet one person, get this sorted, what would that look like? So clearly, that's not going to be a democratic process. That's not going to be an ethical process. That's not something that I would ever want to work on. And I think, we deal with things quite often where clients might feel under pressure. They might say to you, "Oh, do you know what? Maybe we've had reviews." I think Graham was saying about working in consumer PR. Maybe you've had bad reviews and you want to go and astroturf and put other things, or maybe you feel that you need to do things that are maybe a bit untoward. You've got to stick to the code of conduct. You've got to stick to your personal ethics, and you've got to be able to turn that stuff down. We have a list of clients here of who we won't work with. And that's part of our integrity as an agency, and I think it's really important that we have these positions.
Great, thanks, Dan. And then on to Graham. Thank you.
Chris, great question, and I'm sort of like have to sort of I can count on more than the fingers of one hand the amount of issues that I've had when it's come to clients who have displayed behaviour which I wouldn't consider ethical, or the CIPR certainly wouldn't consider ethical, and most people wouldn't. And what you do in that circumstance. There's two that spring to mind, both very similar and both related to clients. And one client was a very sort of right on, I'd say, promoted themselves a very ethical, almost holier than thou fashion brand, who always were seen as the kind of poster child, if you like, of ethically minded businesses. Turned out the founder of this business was anything but that, and that was the person that we were working with. And I've got to be careful, shouldn't name names here, although actually this business has subsequently been exposed on a Netflix documentary for its practices that weren't right, basically. We cottoned on pretty soon that something wasn't right, that this guy sort of behind the scenes was very dodgy, and was indulging in practices that we and anyone would consider pretty unscrupulous. And the image publicly that he portrayed and what you found out behind his back, or when you got under the skin of it, wasn't right. It didn't take us very long, but we sat down as the team working on it, and I was working with him, and we decided to resign the account and not do that. And as I said, subsequently, I guess luckily for the agency that we did, because that business did get exposed in another documentary. There's other ethical issue I've had. Again, I can't name names, with a very well-known, globally famous pop star who we used to work with, who sexually harassed one of my staff at the time. And what to do in that situation when you have to deal with that as a man dealing with it. It's I found it a challenge and quite difficult. I didn't quite know what to do. I was working my way around of how to do it. And I remember actually they had a very famous manager as well. I remember talking to the manager and asking him to try and ask that pop star to stop that person's behaviour with regard to my employee. I then had to sit down with the pop star themselves and ask them to stop their behaviour towards that employee. And it was in most people's opinion harassing. And I have to say it resolved itself very well. The both the manager and the pop star were very respectful of what they'd done wrong, understood how they'd misbehaved, maybe had lived a life whereby they'd never been pulled up by anyone before, I think was part of it. But I remember just having a very frank and open, honest conversation with someone that was acting unethically, prevented that situation reoccurring. The client after that was as good as gold, as respectful as ever. And, we dealt with an ethical situation in a way where we didn't have to resign it. I felt like resigning it, and all of us did, but it could be resolved by actually educating that person who had probably never really been educated as to their behaviour before about what they're doing. Just couldn't go on. It wasn't appropriate. It wasn't the right thing. It wasn't ethical behaviour in the context of a professional working relationship. So two very different incidences, which, Chris, you do drag back some memories there of quite awkward times having to deal with that. Scary times for me, having to confront both these situations. And I think sometimes in this industry, you've gotta deal with these things sometimes, and they are moments of truth in your career, and you learn from them and get through them. It makes you a bit stronger, and it helps you spot them as you get older and a bit more experienced.
Thank you, Graham. And if we can come back, please, to David's question around convincing experienced PR professionals about chartership and CPD. If we can kick off, please, with Dan first. If everyone could just stick to sort of 3 minutes, that would be really useful, so we can get some more questions in from other people as well. Thank you.
Thanks, David. So yeah, on your question, I think really, if you want to have impact in your role, if you want to have recognition and you want to have influence, and we talk about people getting to senior levels and board positions, then you have to be doing your CPD. Like, you have to be working on your professional development all the time. We're in a fast-moving industry. You need to be an expert in the latest things that are happening, both for yourself, but actually in the context of the business that you work for, and making sure that you can still respond to what the market's doing, deliver a service that the clients need, and give the value that the clients need. CPD isn't something to do because you work somewhere. It's something to do for yourself, right? Your career is the thing that goes with you, and it benefits your clients and your colleagues and yourself ultimately. It's a really, It's an interesting question. I think if you can't make the leap to why it's important, then I think it's very difficult to see why you would want to be part of a membership organisation. I think the key, and what I talked about at the beginning, is, okay, let's make it more straightforward. So if I'm an account manager and I've come in and I don't know how to get to senior, and I've got a really clear pathway that I can follow that's saying, do you know what, you need these skills, you can work towards that. And then you can demonstrate that back to your employer, because you followed, a competency framework that works alongside your role, and that works, and that can work for an independent person, a freelancer, someone in-house, someone in agency, and then take them through the different career stages with the ultimate aim of getting chartered, and working with businesses and with other charter bodies to say this is why this is important, and really go into why we've got the Royal Charter.
Thanks, Dan. And Graham, can I come back to you next, please?
You can indeed. Hi, David. A long time no see, and a kind of really good question, because I guess I was an experienced, or I'm an experienced PR professional, and I needed convincing about chartership. And having gone through the process a couple of months ago, I sort of needed to know why. And actually, it was Fazana who inspired me to do that, and actually probably inspired me to get on this whole journey as well at the same time. But I didn't realise what the chartership involved. To be honest, had always thought that it was a really long-winded process, took many years, or I just didn't understand as an experienced PR professional what it involved. And what it involved is obviously, quite a bit of preparation, a couple of weeks worth of preparation, thinking about certain things, and then obviously an actually fantastic day with fellow CIPR members, engaging, discussing, talking about stuff, and really interesting conversations that followed. I never realized it was such an enjoyable process, such a valuable process. And I think if we're going to convince experienced PR professionals about it, that's sort of what we need to tell them. It's kind of a process, not just a badge of honor or a stamp that you can get. It's a learning experience. It's a experience where you get to meet other people. There's more to it than just getting charter.pr after your name. And it's kind of not that involved. It's not as hard and scary as it might sound. It sounds a bit scary. We need to make it easy. I'm always trying to communicate and talk to brands about how to communicate things more simply and more easily and more quickly. And I think we just need to make it a bit less scary. And the other point that I make on the chartership was made to me actually by one of my nominators, Daryl Sperry, who runs Hard Numbers. And one of the things that he's done in his business is make sure, which is a brilliant idea, that every employee is chartered. It's a real badge of honor for a startup agency like his to actually have that as a point of difference. And he said to me that when they did it, there were about 620 people that were chartered, and there were more people that had actually been to space than they had got a chartership of the chartered CIPR status. So it kind of wasn't a big thing, and it was so important to his business as a mark of respect, particularly with a newer agency that their practitioners were chartered, that was really important. So I think you've got to convince people as well how it's going to be great for business. And obviously him and his business have gone on leaps and bounds since. So it's not only an interesting journey and not a scary journey for you as individuals, but it's also a really good thing for business. And he's certainly proved that. And my final point with CPD, really having looked at the CPD status, particularly with reference to consumer PR and Gen Zers, honestly, I think the content isn't right. It's not enough. If you're looking to start out a career in consumer PR, there's not enough CPD content that I think is relevant to a career in consumer PR. And I think that is one way to convince people with better content. And I'd love to be able to help input on that. And also, I think for people, you've got to say how actually continuous personal development is something that's going to be brilliant for their careers. It's going to allow them to progress more. It's going to get them more promotion. It's going to get them more money. It's going to allow them to do things more quickly. I think we've got to sell the benefits of CPD as opposed to just collecting points. There's the benefit of that, which is for you to succeed and potentially prosper in your career. So there's kind of two sides to it.
Thanks, Graham, for your response there. We have 3 more people with their hands up, and we have around 20 minutes here. So, Hayley, can I come to you now, please? Oh, sorry, Aileen, I've completely missed you there.
That's okay. I'll be very quick.
No
problem.
Thanks,
I'll be very quick because I think I'll be very much supporting what Dan and Graham have said. I'd say 3 benefits. The first thing that anyone looking at chartership needs to do, whatever area that they're in, and if they're not convinced, is come and speak to those that have got the qualification and that are also committed to CPD and keeping their points up. Come and have a chat because they will be able to tell you exactly what the benefits are, and that absolutely boost of confidence and self-belief that it gives people at any stage in their career when you have become chartered. Secondly, there are tangible commercial benefits. If you're an independent consultant, for example, you might find that you are tapped up to help and support on a project because you have got chartership. And there are good examples that can be given to those that are thinking of entering and going for it to illustrate those tangible benefits. I personally was asked to take part in a global recruitment project because of my chartership, because the client wanted somebody with CIPR chartered status and someone that could talk confidently about the wide range of training that the organisation offers us as members. So I think that's also worth having. And then thirdly, don't forget the softer skills. You expand your network by being part of the chartership program and process, not just with those that you are going through the process on the day with, but with the buddies, with the mentors, with the advisors, with that wider range that CIPR membership gives you in terms of expanding your network. And for many, you'll stay in touch for a very long time.
Thank you so much, and apologies again, I nearly missed you.
That's okay.
Hayley, can I now come to you with your question, and who is your question for? And what
so it's a question for all 3 nominees. I don't know what you call people who could be presidents. I want to just say a really big thank you again, like David said, because it's a big commitment to put yourself forward. So just a really big thank you. One of the big things about being a president of CIPR is about your ability to engage with members. And while there's a JD that says you have to, it's very personal in terms of how you do that. So I'm curious to know from each of the candidates how you will go about ensuring that your engagement, not just communication and put stuff up, but your engagement is inclusive. And inclusive, I mean geography, level, age, demography, all of that. So it'd be good to hear how you personally propose to do that.
Thanks, Hayley. And if I can come, please, first to Graham on that one this time. Can we give these maybe 2 minutes each? Because if the next 2 questions are going to be for everyone as well, I want to be able to give everyone an opportunity. Thanks.
Hi, Hayley. Thanks for that question. I mean, I think, look, I'm at a stage in my career where I've now freed up my time to do a role like this. It's kind of quite deliberate. I'm down to working part-time, which I love, and I've got the time to invest to to do a role like this, like the president's role. And how would I engage with members? I'm happy to be out and about as much as possible. I love being out and about. You know, I've kind of spent my years, all the people I've worked with, meeting as many people as possible. I think it's important to do that in person, and much nicer to do that in person. So I'm happy to travel to all four corners of the country to do that. I'm not that involved in the CIPR today. You know, hands up, that's kind of, you know, I haven't really been. I'm a bit of an outsider for this, which means that I'll throw myself into it, and you know, I'll spend as much time with different groups, committees, either in person or virtually if needed, to be able to do that. I've got to learn a lot about so I'm getting a bit of feedback here. I've got to learn a lot about the CIPR, that's for sure, how it works, how the groups work, how the committees work, and hands up, I need to do that. And I've got, you know, if I'm successful in being elected, I've got a year as the president-elect to get to know more people and get out there. But, you know, I'll do whatever it takes. But I'm out there to meet as many people. I'm throwing myself into it with my eyes wide open. I can't wait to learn more about the intricacies of the CIPR, and do whatever it takes.
Thanks, Graham. And moving on to Aileen, please.
Thank you. I think it's about getting out and directly engaging with our members. When I was pulling my application together and looking at my priorities, Hayley, one of the things I did was I spoke to members in all four parts of the United Kingdom, and the feedback was very direct. The further you are away from London, the more important it is to physically be in the area that particular member is working in. And so I will be on a bus, on a train, on a plane, on an automobile, if I'm successful, to join member meetings, as well as using all the virtual engagement tools I've got. A couple of weeks ago, I went with one of my nominees to the CIPR East Anglia event, which was fantastic. Shione, who's in the audience today, was one of the key speakers. The theme was misinformation and disinformation. The standard of speakers was absolutely brilliant. And of course, the magic was in getting in front of other members and hearing feedback from them as to what was really important to them, and the general ins and outs of the life that we have, the latest gossip on politics, etc. So that convinced me that this role needs to be in people's faces. I also got feedback from other groups like City and Financial, particularly really quite negative about the lack of appearances from enough senior CIPR people, and that includes Alistair and the team as well. So physical presence is important. I've got an invite in the bag from CIPR Wales to come to their conference in Cardiff in November, and also an invitation from the CIPR Northern Ireland team, who are very keen because they struggle with the cost of getting to London-based events. These are all issues we know about, and everyone sitting and applying for this role are aware of those issues. So we need to go and meet people in their own ground, and that includes also engaging with other networks of communicators, like the Asian Communications Network and also the Black Communications Network, and integrate what we're doing with them directly. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally on to Dan, and then we have another couple of questions. Thank you.
So my philosophy is not to be a passenger, it's to get out there and do things. Everything I've done with the CIPR, I haven't just been a seat around the table, always take on extra stuff. And I would continue to do that. I think the president-elect year is great because it gives you some of that foundational time before you take on the role. I think it's really important that you work closely with people that you know are sat around the board table on the presidency as well. I've got an employer that's very supportive of this. Pretty much everyone here has a volunteer or NED role of some description. It's part of our business philosophy. So like everyone says, it's get out there, it's go all around the country. I've been very fortunate in my time volunteering for the CIPR that I have been all around the country, and actually I've worked all around the world. So I think it's important that you know, we think about our international members as well. I've got international clients, and sometimes that means doing a conference call at midnight or really early in the morning. So you know, you can work these things around your day, and I think, you know, get those things that are face to face. I think some of the stuff that Advita's done this year with kind of President Live stuff has been really good. I like the idea of having kind of like an online surgery type idea that members can come in, drop in, raise issues. And as I said, there's some consulting-led projects that will bring people together. That's one of my skills. That's what I do in my day job, bring complex groups together to communicate things simply. So I would be bringing those skills to the table.
Thanks, Dan. And Anne, sorry, Eva, can I please come to you for your question? Who is it for, and what is your question?
Thanks very much. First of all, I'd like to say I'm also delighted that we've got 3 very strong candidates this year. It's the first time we've had an opposed election, and that's really refreshing to hear. And you all seem fantastic candidates, so that's really good. First of all, also, I have to actually, for transparency's sake, say that I'm supporting Dan in the election, which is important to say. But my question is, at what stage of your career did you join the CIPR, and why? But also, what benefits has your membership brought you since you've been a member?
And who's that to, Eva?
Sorry, that's to everybody.
Everybody, okay. Just looking at time and the fact we've still got another question, which is potentially for all 3 people, if we could stick to maybe a 1.5-minute response each, that would be great. And if I could come to Aileen first, please. Thank you.
Hi, Eva. I joined in 1986. I was working in Scotland for PR Consultant Scotland, which was then bought by Shandwick. And I joined because I was hungry to learn, to get the technicalities of public relations. My degree was in psychology. It gave me a bit of insight into how people worked, but I wanted to have the real framework and discipline of a profession that I knew I had fallen in love with and wanted to be part of and build my career from. I also had started what was the Communication, Advertising and Marketing Foundation, sets of CPD, if you like, in the time. This was before the CIPR really had the wealth and breadth of education opportunities that it has now. So I became a CAM Foundation examiner myself, examining others. What's it given me? Credibility, because I have got technical expertise and understanding, not just of all aspects of public relations, but more importantly, of how it fits within the business world and the value we add. It also has given me capabilities that I am absolutely intent on refreshing, particularly as technologically we're getting more advanced and we have to stay ahead of the curve in order to advise our clients. And it's given me finally the access to an incredible network of PR professionals around the world, many of whom I count as friends, many of whom I can rely on when the chips are down and I don't know the answer, and I use that network relentlessly.
Thank you. And over to Dan, please.
So I joined 15 years ago and became a volunteer pretty much a couple of months after that. So for me, I was working in-house for a quantity surveyor, and everybody was chartered, and it was very clear that if you wanted the respect and the progression, you had to get chartered. So I came in, I did the CIPR diploma because I was trained as a journalist. So I wanted the qualification. I wanted to get on that chartership journey, which was a bit different 15 years ago, and then build that network and build that credibility. So straight onto the CAPSID committee as a committee member and starting to get to know people in my industry. It has given me that credibility. It's given me that network. It's given me that learning. I think it's fair to say as well, there's another organisation out there. Why did I choose the CIPR? It is the Royal Charter. It is the mission of the CIPR that attracts me. I do believe in the power of communication for the public good, and I do believe that's what we're here for. Ethical, good practice that makes a difference to people.
Thanks, Dan. And finally, Graham.
Hi, Eva. Thanks for the question. Really good question, because my answer is going to be a little bit different, I think. I mean, I did join 17 years ago, and when you're asking why, or why should people join, or why did I join, honestly, I don't know why. I just thought I should, because it was about, there was no real compelling reason for me to join, or it certainly wasn't communicated to me. And when I speak to my colleagues in consumer PR, which, as I said, is about 30% of our industry and a big part, no one's a member. I don't know any members. When I was looking for some nominators to back me up, all of the people that are running agencies, similar sort of size to Frank, or smaller or bigger, I couldn't find a CIPR member. And I think that's the problem, is that there isn't a compelling, or there hasn't been made the case enough for a compelling enough reason, particularly from people from consumer PR, to join. There hasn't been communicated the value of getting chartered. There hasn't been communicated what the benefits are in terms of CPD and the learning and the development. In consumer PR, a lot of people are members. You know, my daughter is 25. She just started a job a couple of years ago in another consumer PR agency. I was talking to her about what I'm doing with this and why she should join. She didn't know anything about the CIPR. That agency, big household name agency, had never really communicated to her what the benefits were, what the CIPR was, weren't involved in it. And I think there's a massive opportunity there. So I think, you know, at the moment, I'm not sure, certainly in consumer PR, people see the relevance enough of the CIPR to them, and I'd love to make sure that they do, because there's a massive opportunity there for a whole section of our industry and a whole swathe of particularly younger people who are involved in that industry, to be involved. And we need to communicate quite clearly and in a much better way what the benefits are.
Thanks, Graham. And finally, this is the last question. Anne-Marie, Lacey, please. And I will give each of the candidates 1 minute to respond, because we have to wrap up after that. Anne-Marie, please let us know your question and who you're directing it to.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. So this is for everyone. Sorry, you'll have to be quick. And again, just to say thank you, well done for putting yourselves forward. You three very brave souls. And in the interest of transparency, I'm also one of Dan's nominators. But my question is for all of you. So CIPR has just over 11,000 members from all different walks of life. We've heard a little bit of your backgrounds as you've been talking today, but at the minute, it seems everyone is either agency or an independent working with clients. But the role of the president is to be chief volunteer for all members, regardless of sector, regardless of whether you're for-profit, not-for-profit, commercial, non-commercial PR. So my question to everybody is, what do you have to offer all 11,000 members? What value would you bring to all 11,000 members of the CIPR?
Thanks, Anne-Marie. If we can kick off firstly, please, with Dan, and please be mindful, everyone, we've got 1 minute each to respond. Thank you.
That's a huge question. As I said, I've worked in-house, I've worked in agency, so I haven't been a freelancer. I've worked in Asia Pacific, the Americas, and Europe, and all over the UK, in Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool, and London. So I think I've got good geographic spread and good networks on that side. So I think I've got a good understanding, actually, of what people need. I've had about 40 conversations before I stood for this with various people from all around the membership. But it's about listening. I'm not going to stand here and say I've got all the answers now. I think part of getting the role is that you get the ability then to tap into that network more with a clear reason why you need to speak to everyone and bring those people together. So it would be spending next year as president-elect listening as much as possible, to be able to reflect that and make sure that we reflect things. And while I've been here, we've done lots of other things that have involved lots of engagement with members, like the governance review, and I think it's important that continues.
Thanks, Dan. And Graham, please.
Oh, I'm off mute. Hi, Anne-Marie. Thanks for the question. Look, I think if you do this role, I think, and I'm probably all three of us, you've got to love people, and you've got to love spending time with people and enjoy the interpersonal bit. I think if you get into this business, particularly in the agency world, it's a people business. I mean, sometimes I think, you know, actually I spend more time with the people and doing the people side of things than I do actually the PR side of things, sometimes running an agency. So you got to naturally love that. Look, I've naturally got an inquisitive mind. I love learning. I love the chartership day and the process. I love the different perspectives on PR that I got out of that. And, that, to be honest, has given me a bit of a taste for this whole journey into being president. It was really something that made me think a bit more about all the different types of people, like you said, that are within our profession, all the different geographies, all the different backgrounds, all the different things that we practice. We all practice different sorts of PR. I'm still hungry for knowledge. I love getting out there and meeting people, and I want to engage with as many people and learn as much and hopefully contribute as much to this organisation as I can.
Thanks, Graham. And finally, on to Aileen.
It's a great question, Anne-Marie, and it sort of blends into our summing up proposals. But I would say I bring three things. First of all, credibility and capability. I've got the lived experience of having worked in both in-house, in agency, and as an independent consultant. Secondly, I've got a desire and hunger and a track record in showing the value of public relations in all types of business settings, whether that's public sector, whether it's listed, private, not-for-profit. And then thirdly, I think I can bring a lot of value from my outside interests that are on non-exec roles to understand and master the governance that we have within the organisation, but more importantly, to represent the voice of members and to prioritise and lead members into what's going to give them most value and what's going to bring credibility to our profession.
Thank you. Thanks to all the candidates. We have now moved to the final part of the hustings, and I will invite each candidate, please, and we'll do this in alphabetical order, to give your final statement. If you can please take no longer than 1.5 minutes, I would be appreciative of that. Thank you very much. We'll start with Aileen. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's been a great session this morning. Good questions that have had us thinking hard about our responses, but I've got three things to say in my summing up. First of all, I believe that the opportunity of the president-elect role and the president role is a collective opportunity. These are not omnipotent roles. The power does not rest at the very top of an organisation like the CIPR and its memberships. It rests with you, and this role is about representing what it is that members want to do, prioritising those and championing the profession. And I think I've got that capability to do that. Secondly, as others have said, our profession is at a crossroads, and we're going to have to take decisions now and in the next 18 months that will shape our future as a public relations profession. That means prioritising. We can't do it all alone. And I think the role of the president-elect and president is to help make those tough choices together with members, together with the board, and together with the council. And I'm up for doing that. And then thirdly, this is a career and a profession that I absolutely love. I want to be able to return investment on that career, and I want to be able to deliver the three priorities that I've outlined in my application. Value to members, so that members feel this is the only organisation they want to be part of. Secondly, an inclusive membership as well, and making sure that we're well represented and we change some of the appalling facts and figures around our own diversity and inclusion, looking at all aspects of that. And then thirdly, that we can have fun, that we are learning and developing, and no matter where you are in your career, there is something here for everybody. I'm the person that can help deliver that. I've got the clarity, the time, the energy, the enthusiasm, and I'm up for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Aileen. And moving on to Dan, please.
Right. Thank you all for your questions and for attending today. Yeah, a lot of ground covered and a lot to sum up quickly. But essentially, I want to equip our members with what I think and what members have told me they need to make a positive difference, both in their careers and in society. So that's professional development. That's taking a stance on key issues and getting out there into the market with other influencers, with media, with other businesses, and putting us out there. And it's driving improvement in practice. The things that we teach, the things that we share, and the research and things that we produce. I love the CIPR. I've put in a lot of time and energy into the CIPR through my time as a volunteer here. But I think it's got a bit of a crossroads. I don't think it's just our career that's our industry that is. I think CIPR is, and I think it's not living up to its full potential and needs to get out there more. You know, this is a critical time as a membership body to make sure it's sustainable for the long term and make sure it's providing what members need. So we need a clearly defined plan about what we're doing, who we're working with, and how we're putting ourselves out there in the market. And that is going to involve some foundations around governance and risk, right? It's not just about the members, but that is a huge part about it. And I think the Royal Charter, I've mentioned it so many times, but we don't make enough of it. It is our differentiator. It is what we should be doing. It is what belongs to us. And that's what I want to bring to the forefront. So we need the CIPR that leads. We need a CIPR that's ready to meet the challenges of the market and the challenges that we're all facing every day. I want to get out there. I want to keep speaking to members, keep going on this journey and put the energy and effort into doing this. I'm really passionate about doing it. I don't want to walk away at the end of that term if I was successful and say, oh, what did he do while he was there? It's really important that there's a legacy and something that is visible. And I would hold myself to account to that.
Thanks, Dan. And finally, Graham, if you could please give us your sum up.
Will do. Thanks. So, and thanks everyone for their time today. This has been a fantastic experience, I think, for everyone involved. So, I think having spoken to the current president and the president-elect, I think the role of the CIPR president is changing a little bit with the times, perhaps less technical, less governance focused, less procedural, less introverted, and maybe the requirement is shifting, I think, for someone a bit more with a broader view of the industry who has operated at the sharp end for a good period of time. Maybe you could say someone a bit more ambassadorial, an expert in consultancy, someone with business, commercial and PR expertise and experience, which is, to be honest, the reason why I've got more involved with the CIPR and hence why I stand before you today. I guess I've often been labelled as a PR heavyweight, which I kind of like and don't like in equal measure. On the one hand, it could explain why I've been on the Manjaro for the last couple of months. But on the other hand, it does describe how I've served my time in the industry, gone through just about every situation and emotion that there is. I've still got the battle scars to prove it, and I've thoroughly enjoyed every minute. And now I feel it's kind of time to give back. You know, I've changed my role at Frank, so I've got the time available to put into this role. I'm getting towards the end of my PR career, so I'm not standing before you because being president is going to do wonders for my CV. I'm here because I want to help this industry and the many thousands of members who are part of it. Yes, I've got some catching up to do in terms of the ins and outs of the CIPR, who, the groups, the committees, and if elected, I've got a year to do that, I guess, while president-elect. I've got some learning to do, and I guess today's Hustings sessions and the questions and the comments have really proved that. But if elected, I can't wait to get more immersed in this wonderful body, whilst at the same time keeping my fresh and outside perspective. I'm a proactive guy by nature. I try to make things happen rather than wait for things to happen. The CIPR is a great institution, but I think it's got to be a bit more on the front foot. It's got to sell itself better. It's got to appeal to the new and next generation of people coming into this PR industry. It's got to do more with what it means for a practitioner to be chartered and how that is the gold standard. It's got to be relevant and involved in broader business conversations. I'll do my best to work with everybody at the CIPR to make that happen, and I would be proud to serve, if successful, the CIPR and its members as its president. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. And also thanks to everybody. So thanks, Aileen, Dan and Graham, for your time and your responses. Thanks to everyone for some brilliant questions. It's very encouraging to see a good turnout, but also some really good questions for people to get stuck into, and for members to hear some good responses to. Please look out for your voting email from My Voice UK. Please don't make it be in your junk or anything like that. Voting is only open to full members, fellows and honorary fellows. So if you're a student, an associate or other grade of membership, you will not be able to vote. Voting will begin tomorrow morning Friday the 3rd of October, so please look out for your voting email. It will close on the 17th of October and announcement of results will be on the 20th of October. Thank you very much to everybody and enjoy the rest of your day.